Well, it's wintertime in Ohio. You can tell by all the salt and crud on my daughter's car. This is her 2011 Chevy Impala, and it's just like every other Chevy front-wheel drive vehicle out there. The rear struts are bad, and the mounts are bad up in the top, and it's banging around making noise. So I've got 2 new struts to put in. I buy quick struts. It's a strut, the spring, the mount, all in one piece. So when you get those put on, and this tire keeps going low on her, so I'm going to take that apart and see what's going on. She's got a noise in the front end. Says her brakes are making noise. Wonder if she's down to metal yet. Sure is looking that way, don't it? Oh yeah, look at that. That's not good. She's got a pulsation. Alright, we got the wheel off. So the next thing we need to do is get this caliper out of the way. We need it out of the way because we have to get to these 2 bolts, right? These nuts right here. And the reason we want to get on this side is because these bolts are splined. In here they're splined all the way around to hold it in place. This particular knuckle and the struts that we bought are not adjustable. They don't have an ovaled hole in here. It's just a standard straight bore hole right through. So when we take this out, we're going right back to where we were. So the importance of going this way is we have to take these out and then push these out, because if you try and spin this, which is why there's not an actual head on here, it's more of just a wrench where you can hold it. If you spun that, you would destroy the spindle hub right here and it wouldn't bite. So we need to take this off and then drive it out like that. You can see how they give you this extra length on the bolt, so when you hit it with your brass hammer, you don't affect the threads. But first, let's get this caliper out of the way. Now I've got the caliper supported up here, sitting on top of the trailing arm. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to torch this off. Actually, I'm also just torch just the bottom off, because I'm going to replace this. Because every time I do struts, if I don't replace these, it seems like it's just a few weeks later and they start making noise after being disturbed. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this, torch it off, and then we can start on this. Take a brass hammer, tap these out. So there's what I was saying about it being splined. Start taking the other one out. There's a ABS sensor back here we need to be mindful of. I'm going to leave that in there. When I get in the trunk, there's 3 nuts on the top of this bearing plate, or this mount plate. Okay, back behind here is the strut mount. So, you see there's 2 here, and then there's 1 back there. Just pop this out of here. Make it easier. They're just 15 millimeters. Now those bolts are out. Okay. Now this can drop down here. Drop down in that little pocket there. And come out this way. And as you can see, both holes on that are just straight holes, they're not slotted. So that's the left and that's the right. And when I ordered them, I ordered one left and one right. Unfortunately, they gave me two lefts. So when it was sitting like it's supposed to, these studs were in another spot. You can see where they were driven in here, just like what this one was. So I just drove them out. We're gonna have to draw them in these other holes, which will make it a right. Kind of sucks, but it's not worth the aggravation to return this when I can just quickly change these over. Thankfully, it's not really a big deal. The only thing that might be a little bit of a pickle is this one right here. It's really close to the spring. I may have to pull the spring out a little bit right in here. Take and pry that out just a little bit, see if I can get a little more room. Ain't the end of the world, we'll get it. Okay, now we have one right-hand side strut. Let's put this one in. Alright, that's out. So now we're ready to put the strut in. It's just nothing more than reverse. Gotta set this down in here. Pocket first. Clear the fender. And then set it up in the pocket up here. Now is where I need the second. So now I gotta have somebody in the trunk to start them nuts while I hold this in place. I got it stuck in there, so now I'm gonna take the nuts that come in with the struts and get them started on the tops. All right, so we got the top tightened and got the through bolts in and tight, and of course I never seize that. I'm not putting the caliper back on right now because I'm waiting on the stabilizer link for either side, so we're just gonna let that go for right now. And I'm gonna set it on a piece of lumber right here so I can let my jacks down, and we're gonna move our attention to the front and see what we got going on here. When I got it apart, there's probably the source of the pulsation right there. Brake pads are about done. See, this one's wearing nice and even. Inside has a little more wear than the outside. Caliper went in nice and easy. So she had a noise. I found somehow that got pushed up against the rotor and was squeaking. So I bent that out all the way around. So really it needs calipers and brake pads for the front. And the front wheel, I put some water around it. I've marked it in several places because the bead's leaking. We took these tires loose from these rims once, cleaned this all up, and put bead sealer on that, and it was good for a while, but looks like we didn't do a very good job, or not good enough. We'll have to do it again because it's leaking 2 spots right here and then 3 spots on the back. So I've cleaned up the aluminum wheel and gave it a coat of bead sealer. So now we're going to put the tire back on. So we put that sealer around. I gave it a few seconds to kind of set up, a few minutes that is. And we put the tire back on, and now I've got water all around the bead. I'm looking for bubbles. What do you say?
No bubbles, no troubles.
It's a fact. We already checked the other side, and we didn't see anything. So we've got it at full air pressure where it's supposed to be. If I don't see any leaks by now, we should be okay. So we're gonna go ahead and put we'll check the air again, just make sure I did put it where it's supposed to be. And then we're gonna go ahead and take the other side apart because we're putting brakes on it. Well, I think we found a growling noise. Let's see how long this has been letting water in. Let's say that seal failed and let a bunch of water in. So, and then this is all corroded in here pretty bad. So we're gonna have to clean that up good. And we'll have to never seize that. You know, because I use too much never seize, I'm told. Oh, look at that. It's so corroded right there this probably pushed in right here, probably pushed in on this, which is probably that we see right there, because that was over like that. So that corrosion pushed in on that. Wow, that's a lot of corrosion in there. God. Well, I'll take it apart and clean it good. So I guess we're going to go ahead and do wheel bearings on both sides. We'll go ahead and do rotors because we got it apart. I'm questioning whether I should do calipers and hoses because the car is a 2011 and the calipers are original and so are the hoses. Well, it's not just trucks, man. It's everything. Everything seems to be like a major resurrection, you know? I was hoping this was just going to be brake pads, but I guess not. You can see the dust shield here. The bearing would let the rotor move and started working on the dust shield. She did good though. As soon as she heard it, she called me, tell me what was going on. Okay, let's order some parts, I guess. Okay, so here's our strut assembly, and let's talk about why we're replacing this. The reason isn't because of the ride quality, that's not it. It's the fact that the mount itself has failed. So in order for this strut to work, or the premise of how it works is, there's a single rod that comes inside this chamber here. This chamber is sealed where the rod comes through. There's a piston in here, and you have usually gas charge or an oil charge on either side of the piston. So when you hit a bump, it pushes up against the fluid on this side, and then it pushes it back down against the fluid on this side to help soften the ride. Well, in order to get ride height, you need a way to support the load. So the body of the strut is supporting the load. So the strut piston has to move independently from this. So what they do is they give you a mount here, and then this coil spring has a predetermined compression. So you have energy stored in here. So as you can imagine, you don't ever want to take that nut off of there, off the end, without the proper tools to compress this spring, because it will definitely hurt you, or maybe even, you know, the big D word that nobody likes to hear. So the failure in this one was not in the cylinder down here, because a lot of times they'll leak their charge out and you get a real bouncy ride. That's not the case. This one, the failure was in the mount. So when this strut rod comes through here, you'll be able to see the difference. See how this one is sunk in here and how that one is up above. This one's beginning to fail as well, but the mount itself fails. And what happens when you hit a bump, it's no longer solid. So you get this movement in here, and it's a banging noise, because what's happening is the rod is banging against the mount, and that'll give you that horrible knocking noise that GM front-wheel drive cars are so famous for in the back ends. Now I'm going to remove this off camera. Don't ever take this loose if you don't have the proper tools and understand what you're doing. But I'm going to take it apart just so I can show you what the failure is here. Alright, so I got it apart. You can see it's torn here. So ideally this is two different mounts. There's an outer metal and an inner metal sleeve. One's inside the other with rubber, all encapsulated. So when it goes bad, when you saw this, you saw how this was shoved down way like this, and you can see this metal. Reason being is the inside here has deteriorated and allowed it to do this inside here. So you can see how it's worn here, and it's been banging up against the mount on here that whole time. So there's your horrible noise you always hear in a GM vehicle in the back. I got this side all completely torn down, so now I'm going to work on this side. We're going to go ahead and replace this wheel bearing, the rotors, the pads, and calipers on this side, so it's all done. And it's going to be a little while before I get the parts, so I'm going to go ahead and stop here. When we get the rest of the parts, we'll pick up and we'll go back together.